Welcome back, Homeschool Mamas. I hope that you have been able to rejoin us as we got cut off. I was chatting with Kara S. Anderson, the author of More Than Enough, Grow Your Confidence, Banish Burnout, and Love Your Homeschool Life. Hey, Kara. Okay, so Kara was telling us that she decided this morning that she is going to put on a new podcast, and I want to make sure that everybody hears that. Hi, I don't know what happened. I had Wi-Fi
Hi.
apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird, but we're back.
It happens. Yeah. Let's just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Okay. So I first want to just mention that you have a podcast that you're going to release this September, you said, More Than Enough?
The plan is this month, definitely by the beginning of October. Yeah, I'm going to have
Yay.
a new podcast coming out, the More Than Enough podcast, based on some principles in the book and some things that I've wanted to explore since the book came out, and just kind of continuing with that theme of supporting moms and letting them know
Yeah, that is awesome.
got this.
And like I said earlier, but I want other people to hear that you are a very warm, very authentic, and very funny presence online. And I've been listening to you for at least 3 years, I think. I don't remember how long you've been on the Homeschool Sisters.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. We just had a 5-year anniversary.
5 years.
Yeah, we're coming back with season 10 on the 21st, September 21st.
Wow, congratulations. Tell me, have you been editing the entire time, or do you have editing service?
No. I did the beginning, yeah, and we eventually hired an editor because yeah, and it's been really fun because we're doing all kinds of behind the scenes tech stuff right now, so I think it's going to sound better than that.
Awesome.
That's the hope.
Yes, exactly. Well, I just started season 2 myself, and I did 55 podcast episodes the first season. I edited it all myself, and I'm feeling maybe I should do something different. Yeah. But you're going to start that podcast. You've been on Homeschool Sisters, and you're on Read Aloud Revival this summer as well. You're all over the place.
Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah, we did that whole 4 podcast series about reading a book a day, and that was super fun. I love those so much. We have way too much, so then we have to rein it back. Yes, be like, okay, we're trying to make a point.
That you love books, and that is
we do. Yeah,
completely valid. I don't think you're allowed to be
we get carried away, and then we're talking about a book for 15 minutes. We're like, okay, that might have been a little too much to talk about a book, but
maybe, but we really do. I mean, I haven't yet met a homeschool mom that doesn't like books. I don't think you're allowed to be a homeschool mom, if you don't like books. It's okay. You can. Yeah.
We're definitely, we wear out those library cards and library holds, and
yes, we definitely do. And you also have an audio version of your book that's coming out any minute.
Literally any minute. Any minute, I should say any day, because I don't know what's going to be today, but it's I keep refreshing my email because they're telling me it's going to be any minute. So I'm like, okay, refresh, just waiting.
I can't wait for it, because your presence is just, you got to hear it through your voice. You're very warm, very funny. And when you're ready to do the stand-up comedy tour for homeschool moms, I'm with you.
Aw, thank you.
Me, and Betsy Jenkins, if you know her from Homeschooling with the Classics.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So funny.
Yes. Love her. She too. All her pictures, all her old pictures, and oh my goodness.
Me too. Hilarious.
It's the owl pellets, the 2 owls, and they're like, look, those homeschoolers are dissecting our vomit.
That's good. I don't remember that one. There was one where it's actually not classical art, but there's one with 3 little boys, and the boy standing up is kind of scratching his head, and she has something about a meme that says, every time your homeschooled child tries to remember, or whenever they're asked what grade they're in, and it's we tell our kids grades just so that people don't worry that they can't read, or whatever it is people think about us as homeschool families. But your book, I want to dive right in. If anybody has questions, they're welcome to throw them in the comments section. We're glad to answer that. But you have three different aspects of your book that you discuss that are really robust. Like we could talk about each of these topics for a very long time. The first one is, are you enough as a homeschool mom? Are you enough? The second is how to love your homeschool life. Very big one. And the third one is how to banish burnout. And that one applies to everyone this year. And certainly that's quite the topic to tackle for this year.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking about that a little bit before when we were trying to get the live going. Yeah. I feel like I'm hearing that so much more. Normally those are the kinds of things we hear in like November and February, right? Like when people are starting to hit burnout, but I think people are still burned out from last year. And I know you were saying like, I'm hearing from people that like they never really finished last year. It just sort of like tapered out and they still need to go in and like kind of toss out the workbooks that they didn't like and find the new stuff and reorganize and all that stuff. And just trying to get going this year seems especially hard for a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and I said as well that in my homeschool room, which by the way I don't use for homeschooling, but I use it as a storage closet for all the books I own. And there's a lot of stuff on the floor right now, all the kind of papers and all the things that the kids did. And I usually write down all the things that they do. It sounds like really laborious, and it is. But the benefit of doing that is that I look back and go, oh wow, we did so much, and they're learning so much. So that's why I do it. But it's still sitting there, and it's September 9th, and next week I'll be officially, I don't know, starting homeschool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that
yeah.
from people too, that like they're starting later this year. And really we only started earlier because we were forced, because we're outsourcing a lot more this year. So things started and we had to get ready for it. Otherwise, I don't know when we would have gotten going again,
Yeah.
honestly, because we just, and we did end up going into the summer a little bit this year because I had some surgery. So we took like 7 weeks off.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just all different. It feels really different this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, it really does. First, I just want to say that I think it's Polling Melinda says she's excited. Great job. Can you list all three of your books here? So tell us
Oh,
your
just the one.
for now. And it is more
But that
than enough.
subtitle is three things. Maybe that's where
Yes, the
you should
byline. Yes.
grow your confidence, banish burnout, and love your homeschool life. So maybe that's where the question comes from.
And it's as warm and honest and vulnerable and funny as you're experiencing Kara today. But I bet you already know Kara. That's my guess. So yeah, so you were talking about having a real challenge going back into homeschooling. And for me, it has, like, because I learned very, very quickly after, I think it was 3 years of homeschooling in a very traditional private schooled approach using Susan Weiss Bowers, The Well-Trained Mind, as the structure for my homeschool, which was like a private school at home. And it was so intense that when I finally came across John Taylor Gatto and John Holt and all of the unschooling principles, then I was like, I literally sat my daughter down in a Starbucks and I said, we are no longer homeschooling and you can do whatever you want, which I did truly do for 6 months. And then the other kids got bored. But, we did that and it really did help me understand or think about what is an education anyways, and why am I doing all the stuff that I'm doing? Because there's a lot of busy work, the traditional approach. And really, you stuff too much stuff into your child's schedule and they get exhausted and overwhelmed without a pandemic. But you
Yeah.
were talking about, the pandemic and how it influences our kids. And so how have you experienced that?
Yeah, I realized that my expectations of things have really shifted after seeing basically a year when a lot of people couldn't do school the way that they had been in traditional schools. And it all sort of some of the things started to come undone a little bit. It was like I remember reading about somebody who for for gym, they had to write like a paper about playing a game. And it's like, shouldn't we just be letting it for gym, for school? Shouldn't, if we can't do gym in school, like, can't we just let our kids go out on a bike ride or, do an exercise video at home or something like that? Like it just made me realize like we really have built this structure that doesn't maybe make a whole lot of sense in some ways anymore. Like I'm getting very rebellious. I'm getting very like, rah, rah, like, I don't know, a little bit spicy about the whole thing because it just seems like, you know, our kids are going through an unprecedented, really challenging time in history. And I think we need to be seeing them as whole people right now and worrying a lot less about fitting everything into neat little subject boxes and worrying a lot more about their mental health. And I mean, everybody always was like, how do those homeschoolers get socialized? Well, none of us were able to socialize for a long time. So, for my kids, honestly, the last year looked like more screen time because that was how they were connecting with their friends. And I think, especially as teenagers, like our kids really need that peer connection. And so just everything changed. And I don't know if we necessarily should go back to the way things were. It's opened up my brain a little bit. It's made me question things a lot more. It's gotten me a little bit more, and for sure, just worrying more about our kids' mental health, how they're doing emotionally, our families, how everyone's coping, that kind of thing, and less about checking boxes.
Yeah.
I was like that before. I've just gone off the rails entirely now.
Yeah. Well, girlfriend, I have really been doing that for solidly 10 years. And I'm not trying to respond to the people around me, but I have a lot of schooled people, like teachers and administrative people in my direct family. And frankly, we all have a lot of people like that in our worlds, and we have that education system in the back of our heads because we did it, most of us. And so I still am challenged to think outside the box in my practical days, but I can preach it because I think it sounds good, your education-y stuff, but like, how is it actually working in your home? And it isn't. That's the point. Very few kids, although I did have one, she just graduated, is very academic and actually wants a full schedule with all the like neat little stuff from hour to hour or 15 minutes planned out and get all the stuff done. They do. There's some kids that do, but there's a lot of kids that don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had said before that, really being able to look at the kid in front of us and see what they need. And that's such a gift of homeschooling.
Yes.
But we still get stuck in the other stuff, thinking that we're not allowed to do that because, well, yes, I want to look at the child in front of me, but this math program is broken into 28 lessons, so I have to get through the 28 lessons. I have to stay on this page, and if not, they're going to fall behind. And so, I think that's the challenge, is letting that go more and more. But it's scary because then we think, well, but if I don't do that, then my kids won't be able to do what they want to do, either whether that's college or trade school or
can I spin it because
their dreams. We don't want to stand in the way of that by not doing it right, by not doing enough. But what do kids really need to get? I mean, literally, there are kids who basically missed an entire year of school. They've stopped doing SATs and ACTs as a college requirement at a lot of colleges. Things are changing. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next few years are impacted.
Yeah, it will. But I actually really think if we spin it differently and we actually say, let them fully be who they are right now and like try to flourish, like help them flourish in whatever they're doing right now, they're going to be more focused in what they really were meant to do when they are at 18 or 19 or whatever. Instead of us all doing the same kind of, not the exact same thing, but getting the letters after our name and getting the dollars in our bank account and having the nice house and the nice car and the nice vacation and the nice, etc., until we finally, retire. and then ask ourselves, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Because this is like, is that it? And if we can get our kids focused on who they really are and what they're all about before they leave home, then maybe they're listening more to what's going on inside of them, so that they can go do the right thing.
Yeah.
But get all existential and stuff. But
But
it's more,
what happens, we do get like that, right? Like,
yeah,
especially
especially
like,
this year. Yeah,
it's like, wait, why am I trying to do this? Because schools were really created because they serve a very real purpose
yeah,
to educate a group of 30 kids at a time, or what have you. But like, we've stepped outside of that. It's this like, how much can we step outside of that
yeah,
and still prepare our kids for what it is they want to do? And I think that's like the big question that, yeah, especially as I have a kid that's graduating this year, it's
yeah,
like, okay, we're gonna see how this experiment, like, so far so good, but we're gonna
yeah.
really see how this all has played out. And
It'll work.
yeah,
Yeah, it will.
thank you.
It's scary only because other people are questioning you. And, or
Mm,
at least I should say that was my experience. And my experience was like constantly. I actually rewrote an article from like a few years ago yesterday, and it was all about how somebody was asking me, why are you trying to defend your discussion or your choice to homeschool? Like, I'm not defending my choice to put my kids into school. And I'm like, because I'm constantly being asked about it. And so in the beginning, I was way more defensive, and I was always like mentally writing my essays and obviously blogging about it. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't even hear it anymore, except that when I hear education people speak their education speak, I just think, we need to burst that balloon and stop talking so silly. Like this, I shouldn't say it that way, but like talking about these big grand ideas when really you're talking about very basic things. And there's a whole, that's not, if we could just like take away the constructs around it and see the child that's actually right here, then maybe it wouldn't be so complicated. That's
yeah,
what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's definitely, it's over complicated. Like, we decided to do school, and yet we still feel like we kind of have to play by some level of school
right.
rules,
Yeah,
and how much
do
can we
we? Yeah,
bend the rules, and how, and a lot of that comes from, like, seeing it just takes time. It takes
yeah,
time to see that our kids are doing okay in this alternate way of doing things, and that they're
yeah,
thriving. But sometimes thriving looks really scary, because sometimes thriving looks like a kid who just wants to play music all the time, or just wants to talk about Pokemon all the time,
yes,
or something that we're not really into. Like,
yes.
my son, he went through this phase where when he was like, I don't know, maybe like 8 to 10, where he was making these really intricate stop motion animation
Oh, cool.
videos.
Yeah,
And at the time, I was like, all he wants to do is these videos. I'm failing him. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. He's, whatever. And now I look back and I'm like, I wish I would have just been like, this is so cool that he's so
yeah,
on this and so fascinated by it and learning constantly. But
yeah.
it wasn't easily quantifiable
Right, exactly.
learning. And that's where it gets tricky for us, is that we still feel like we have to check boxes,
Yes,
because because
that's what
check boxes
people do.
get you into college, and that's how we measure success, right? So it's like,
Yeah. I love actually like a
it makes
gray
my
ox said, and I want to get to know a gray ox because I want to know who that is and what kind of personality is a gray ox. And oh my gosh, yes, she said we had to write papers for gym and math because our school had scores so low on writing tests that they crammed it in everywhere. And I know that feeling too. I remember writing gym tests on football rules. And my husband loves the NFL. We're in Canada, but he loves the NFL. And it's still, I went to Super Bowl actually. I've never watched a football game in real time except Super Bowl. And it was super fun, and never watched it since because I'm just so not into it. And apparently I was supposed to memorize all the rules for grade 9 gym. And I was like, why? I don't understand why. There's
yeah,
check off the boxes, or like, a gray ox said, there's just like busy work, really. And it was more about the school
Yeah.
system than it wasn't about her or
Right.
him. Yeah. Or whoever.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
Interesting.
imagine. I needed that class because I still don't understand football and I don't understand tennis scoring at all. And that came up fix that my daughter, my husband was telling my daughter about tennis scoring and how it works. And I'm like, I've made it my entire life. I have no idea how they score tennis.
Exactly. Yeah. You just call out 15 love every time and you're
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about are you enough, then like, what do you say to that? Because that's a big question for a lot of people. They really question, am I really good enough for what I'm doing as a homeschool mom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think the very fact that we're asking ourselves, am I enough to do this well, means that we're worried, but we're worried in a in a good way because it means that we just love these kids so much and
Yeah.
we want to give them everything and we want to make sure that they have the opportunities, in the future.
Yeah.
So kind of the very fact that we're worried about it is really a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, what I think what we need to think about is then how to like channel that worry, properly. But if you are, wondering about being enough for your kids, like that means that you are so invested in them that it's going to be okay because you are going to work with them and be by them and be by their side and make sure, that it's okay. And so it might not look traditional, but you're there and you're going to keep looking for opportunities and alternatives and ways to make it fun. Um, so I think that with that level of investment, like how could we possibly fail?
Right.
Because it's about our love for our kids.
Yeah.
And
And you are your child's greatest advocate.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Someone once told me that you should sing your children's songs confidently. I'd always sung my kids' songs, lullabies, and you sing your songs. But I remember thinking, I don't have a good singing voice. I can't do this. But she said, your children think that you have the most beautiful voice in the world. And that is, definitely not true for me, but it is definitely my experience for my children that they're like we were put into their lives so that we could be their parent, but sometimes I think we're told that we need to take on a role even in homeschool that is not, it's beyond, like we're expecting ourselves to be teachers and also mothers, and actually I think they are one and the same and differently, like, but we're resource people, we're facilitators, but we don't, like I shared with you on my podcast, that I don't know how to do that grade 12 math that my daughter's asking me to do, and please don't ask me to do it. But I can find a resource person, also
yeah,
known as her dad, to help her. So there's always a way to create those opportunities, and it doesn't have to all flow out of us.
right, right. Yeah, totally. And there are so many opportunities now. And as
Yeah.
homeschooling grows, those opportunities just continue to become more and more available. And that's really what it's about. I think not necessarily thinking that our kids have to learn everything that they're ever going to learn, like at our dining room table. It's about helping them to find the resources that, I mean, my kids, my son wanted to take Japanese. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's
Wow.
there's three alphabets in Japanese to start out with. Like I'm totally in over my head. How am I ever going to do this? And so I started doing something that I've done for years, which is I just started sending emails. I'm like, oh, okay, here's this college kid that does Japanese tutoring, and here's this, and here's that. And we found an amazing tutor who works with him one-on-one. And now my
Right.
daughter is doing Japanese as well with the tutor. And she has become this wonderful mentor for them, someone who's teaching them about Japanese culture and art. And, she sends us home with, um, like Thai basil that she grew in her garden and
Mm,
homegrown edamame, because she just wants to help immerse them in this world that she loves so much.
yeah.
And so, I mean, it's just, it's like, I think we just have to have a little bit of faith, however that looks for you, that you need to
Right.
have faith that, like you said, we got these kids for a reason.
Right.
And, as long as we stay at it, and I always say most days, not every
Yes.
single necessarily. Some days the very best thing you can do is be like, all right, we're taking a day off. Truly, that's the very best thing you can do, because you have to look at the big picture, right? You have to
Yeah.
look like a week or a month, not necessarily one day in your homeschool. Um, but and so when you can pull back and kind of look at it that way, sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, but just keep showing up.
Yeah.
And it's sort of amazing what happens when we just decide that we're going to partner with our kids, and we're one day at a time.
It is amazing. Now, my homeschool graduated daughter had said she was often asked by non-homeschooled people that, how are you learning though? Like if you were in a high school lab, you get so much more science exposure, lab exposure. And the reality is my oldest daughter did go to high school, public school, and she got two labs in biology in the entire, 3 years of high school she had there. And whereas my daughter that graduated homeschool high school did apologia classes, and that meant she was doing labs every single week.
Yeah.
And I had to, find a bunch of resources that of course weren't obviously always available at home, but she was doing all sorts of different things like that. And yeah, there's like a thousand ways to approach their education, and they don't always source out of your own background or your own training. They sometimes do, but then there's also a community of people out there that can be support people in a very real way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it
Yeah.
it makes it certainly very interesting, and a big tapestry almost of all the beautiful people and experiences that they have, and it makes them come to be who they were meant to be.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think part of it is allowing that to happen, like being
yeah,
open to remaining open to it,
right.
seeing where things take you, um,
Yes.
and cutting things off and thinking like that's not educational enough, because you don't know what's going to come from
Nope.
it. So,
Apparently this last year was a little surprising.
yeah,
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 exactly. So you were saying, I'm not sure if it was the first time we were chatting or the second, but how to banish burnout. We were talking about trying to hold our kids' emotional needs as more important than all of the educational, things that we want to insert into their worlds. So how are you doing that with your kids, really holding their emotional needs or addressing their internal challenges?
yeah. I I think that you had said earlier about how being a teacher and being a mom, like I never really see myself as a teacher. I
Me too.
That's one of the things I've been a little rebellious about with homeschooling. I mean, the only thing I like is like the discount cards and the teacher planners. Um, I don't like the idea of being a teacher. I I want to learn with my kids. Um, and so then that makes it about being mom first. And I think that that's just the biggest thing we can do for our kids is remain mom first and prioritize that relationship. And so that can look different ways for different families. I mean, for us, it's like my daughter and I, we love nothing more than like pulling out all our knitting stuff and watching an episode of a show together and just
Yeah.
um I think the love languages books. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
those books, like the
Oh
five
yeah.
love languages? I think that can be really helpful in kind of figuring out what your teen needs. But I think the big thing is just not pushing some sort of like or one of the big things. I think the biggest thing I just said was relationships. But then, I mean, after that, it's like, so that means not pushing like some kind of educational agenda on
Yeah,
them, and trying to force them to become something they're not.
right.
And not every person needs the same education background in order
Right.
to do what they want to do. That's sort of that's, we've been sold that, right? But
Yep.
it's not really true. And I think we're figuring out more and more that it's not really true. So,
And I think we know it intuitively, but we have all these voices telling us opposite.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're loud and
Yeah.
some super obnoxious and messy, and you just have to,
Yes,
I'm not
exactly.
listening.
Yeah, yeah, training yourself not to listen, really important. And actually, like we were saying before, just really seeing the child in front of us. One of my kids says she will never go to college, and my third daughter, and she wants to be an actress. She has her own very popular YouTube channel, and it keeps growing even though she does nothing with it. And she just loves being with people, but she's so smart. And some part of me is like, but you're really good at mental math. Like there has to be some purpose in this. And coming from this place, I look and go, okay, surely that should mean, I don't know, I'll give you the formulas of possible things you could do based on what I see, except that life always shows us opposite or otherwise, that actually they will be whatever they will be. And yes, mental math and her Enneagram type 4 penchant for wanting to be very creative and her unique self, that will manifest in becoming whoever she was meant to be later.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the best, like being able to look back,
Mm-hmm.
as our kids get older and realize that all those like quirky little things really were something, and like the fact that we let them explore those quirky little things, like that
Mm-hmm.
there was value to it and that they were building some kind of skill set that we didn't even realize at the time.
Exactly.
But it takes um it takes time. I think it helps, like you said, as our kids get older, they get closer to graduation, or
Yeah.
they graduate, and then you're able to say, okay, that was okay. In the midst of it, scary, because you don't want to fail them.
Well, I
And
tried forcing Latin because I was doing that kind of homeschooling. And my oldest, who is a very, like, very, she wants to do things her way. She kind of came out of the womb that way, and she's very free spirited. She was the reason that I knew homeschooling the way we were doing it wasn't working, even though I kept forcing it. And then finally said, "Forget it. We don't have to do anything. You don't have to do any homeschooling ever again." And on the Homeschool Alliance at the time, when Julie Bogart's group had a support group online, there were a few of the coaches that had said, that is exactly the type of personality that will end up getting her PhD or something. And sure enough, she's now going into her third year. She's planning to do a master's later, but she's doing Latin for three
yeah,
years already. And I'm like, really? Okay. She'd be the last kid that I would think would be studying Latin.
yeah,
Who knows? Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Some kids need things like on their terms, and
exactly.
we see that as maybe we see the downsides of that,
Hmm.
but there's like a huge upside to
Yes.
do.
It's hard to parent, but it's
It,
it's amazing to watch on the other side.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. So when you talk about how to love your homeschool life, are you meaning like just like a daily consumption of M&Ms or what? Peanut M&Ms?
Literally have on my desk right now. These aren't
Yay.
the M&Ms.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
I think the big thing with like um with this is like we get so stressed out, we put so much pressure on ourselves, we kind of make ourselves miserable, and um so embracing the the craziness, the like you never know what's going to happen. Kind of, you wake up and it's like you don't have control over things. The
Yeah.
plumbing's gonna, you know, something's gonna happen. The refrigerator's gonna break. You're gonna have things come up and everything else. But knowing that you are in this together with your kids every day, you're building memories. Some of them at the time aren't very fun, like the exploding toilet or whatever. But yeah, I think just it's about embracing the gifts of homeschooling and the gifts of being able to be with our kids and watch them learn and grow.
Yeah.
And you know, like talking about how I have a senior right now, I think about that looking back, like I know I made mistakes.
Of course.
I know
Yeah.
we got things wrong. I know stuff backfired. I know we had to learn things the hard way,
Mhm.
but we were together
Right. Yeah.
every minute, and I'm never gonna regret that.
Yes, you have no idea how that brings up the feelings for me because this weekend, letting Madeline be across the country doing her thing, it is truly just like a rip your heart out thing. And my emotions just say, please stay home. Don't go anywhere until, I don't know, someone marries you and takes you away. And then I'm like, wait, that is not what my intention is go back to Victorian era. No, it's okay. You go do your thing. My heart and my mind are not like congruent because I want it intellectually or logically, I want it for her. And yet I come back home and I see more clearly my two kids that are at home, one that's in public school literally right now, and the other one that is on the other side of this wall doing a Leonardo da Vinci trebuchet building thing. And and I look at them and I say, make memories, make memories, make
Yeah,
memories, because it will come to an end. And all the messiness and all the goodness and the whole thing will come to an end. And whew, now I have no way to rejoinder that one because I could actually go into tears right now.
yeah,
So just, when people say it's short, it isn't and it is all at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It doesn't feel like it on those days when you're just waiting for your spouse to come home and you're like, please, please, just okay. I can't. Like, I want to run away
Yeah.
from this house right now because the physical intensity of chasing around a 3-year-old and trying to get kids to nap and, like you said, colic and
Yeah.
you know all those challenges when they're so little, and then yeah, you get somehow though that you get to the end and it's like how did we get here, and it happened so fast, but it didn't, it was a ton of hard work.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, a ton of really hard work and investment, but I think the big thing is like we can say now like it's worth it. It's
It is
absolutely
worth it.
worth it. And
Yeah.
it can be so tempting. You see the bus drive by and you're like, I'm gonna just I just want
Yes.
to put my kid on that bus and like have
Yes,
a
totally.
break, you know.
Yeah.
And not to say that I think it's really important to try to get breaks when you can. And I think that that's
Yeah.
how to keep homeschooling sustainable is to take breaks when you can. I was terrible at that. Absolutely
Yeah.
terrible. And now I tell moms all the time, um, yes, you need to take breaks. And I'm like, but I know it's really hard. So yeah, but um it's worth it. It's worth the hard work, it's worth the investment you're making. You start to see more and more the dividends of the investment over time, and it's like, okay, I'm glad
It
I did
has
it,
been a beautiful
even
life.
though it's
Yeah.
scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
even scary and overwhelming, and I thought I was failing all the time, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is a big, beautiful life, and we have the opportunity to actually take all the moments or learn so many things. Like you said, I'm not a teacher in my mind either, but I learned so many things with my kids. I probably
Yeah,
have had the best education out of everybody. But you get to learn all these things, you get all these memories in your mind, and you build these relationships with these people that you birth your own community in a way. It
mm-hmm.
sounds, probably not healthy if they're 5 or something, and you're approaching them like you're the coffee club, but hey, why not? We can always do poetry tea time, so why not the Homeschool Mom Coffee Club with their 5-year-old? But instead of seeing them like a separate entity, they're or like a separate, adult person, but they're still someone that you're growing up to become a person that will be a significant part of your community.
Yeah.
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 Your family, like you said, you're building memories, but in order to do that, you're creating traditions and
Yeah.
little habits and the fun little things that connect you, and that can be TV shows
Yeah.
and funny audio and the stuff that doesn't count, but it's still so important.
Yeah. It's a big, beautiful, messy, perfect, imperfect life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the things that you share, all the stories that you share with humor and warmth and vulnerability in your book. And I'm looking forward to listening to the audio version because we get to hear how you perceive things with tone and how your expressions and that sort of thing. And it's going to be really fun to listen to your podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you and me and whoever else wants to join, I would love to do like a stand-up homeschool mom circuit. That would be so fun.
That would be so fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it really would.
Horrible.
The longer that I do this, the more that I just let myself speak, which A, gets me into trouble, but B, is super fun because I'm often saying things that people are thinking but don't want to say and they're too scared to say. So yeah, but it has been such a pleasure chatting with you. This has been super fun.
You too. I'm glad we got to do this again. And I loved being on your podcast. And that was such a good talk. I didn't want it to end. It was like,
I know. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was I thinking? Well, I'm not allowed to forget at the very end of a discussion, but I did because I am that age. Wow, that's amazing. I want to hear about when your audiobook definitely comes out. I want to hear the timing of that. And, of course, we're going to find out about your podcast in about a month or so. And I really appreciate you being here with me, sharing this time.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Lovely to chat. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.